Today I would like to talk about the security of modern AI, and I will talk from the perspective of backdoors, robustness, and detectability. So before we delve deeper into the research details, let me first introduce some background to you. And we all know that the AI is fast growing, especially during the last 2 years after the release of ChatGPT. We have witnessed a soaring growth in both AI applications as well as users. Actually, I can say that everybody is using ChatGPT. Do you? Yep. And actually, you can ask ChatGPT to do everything for you, including like writing, and even you can ask it to be your investment consultant and help you to earn $1 million in the stock market. And however, as we all more and more rely on AI to do the things for me, we will ask a critical problem. Is it safe to do so? Is it secure to ask AI to do this for me? The answer is actually no. And actually, AI has been notorious for their vulnerabilities to all kinds of attacks or security risks. I will give you two famous examples here. The first is evasion attacks. The attackers modify the inputs to manipulate model behaviors in these evasion attacks. For example, here we got an image of a panda. Everybody knows that this is a panda, including the AI and human beings. However, the attackers can craft some noises or patterns and patch them onto the panda image. These noises are invisible to human eyes. And after the modification, we human beings still think that it is a panda. But it is no longer for the AI models because these noises make a big difference. This is usually calculated by calculating gradient or estimation of the gradients. And this time, the AI recognized this image as a given. This means that the noise dominates the model decision. Oops. Another example is a backdoor attacks. It is slightly different. It happens in a different phase. So this time, we got a dog image. Everybody knows that this is dog. However, usually during the model production, for example, during the model training, the attacker manipulates the training datasets. For example, he inserts some images, that is dog wearing a hat. However, they are not labeled as dog. They are labeled as a cat. During the training, the AI models recognize this feature. He learns about it. In the later phase, during the testing, when again this dog image is patched with a hat, what will happen? He will retrieve what he has learned, and now this is a cat. And this hat is usually what we call a backdoor trigger, and you can like recognize it as a key to the mail functionality. So here comes my first research questions. What are the new threats in the fast-growing AI landscape nowadays? Actually, there's far beyond that. And especially, as I mentioned, during the recent release of large language models and foundational models, AI models are growing larger and larger. However, it's typically not practical for our ordinary users to train our own models, for example, our own ChatGPT. This can be due to a lack of training data or a lack of computing resources, that is GPU resources, typically. However, luckily, there have been existing solutions. Large companies like OpenAI and Amazon, they produce some well-trained models. Also, there are users distributing their trained models on open platforms like Hugging Face, Model Zoom. You can directly download them, import them, and deploy them in your solutions or systems, maybe after some fine-tuning and adaptation. However, there's a problem. These models are not trained by our own, but instead trained by someone else, trained by third parties, actually. So what if these third parties are bad guys? What if they may provide us with some malicious models? We all know that the downloading softwares from third parties can be really dangerous. They can be malwares, and these have been studied for decades. And we have well-established defenses. But what about untrusted AI and machine learning models? So the first question we are interested in is, do users really use third-party AI models? To verify this, we send out surveys to users to study about their behaviors. Actually, we found that nearly 96% of the students and the engineers and 94% of the researchers and nearly 90% of even the security researchers, they have used the third-party AI models. This is not surprising, right? But when we come to another question, will you take some security measures when you use them? For example, will you do a basic inspection of the source code and have some basic understanding what it does? The answer actually is usually no. Actually, let me see. Nearly 80% of the students and engineers and nearly half of the AI and security researchers, they adopt these models without any inspection of the code. This means that what they care more is their performance or utilities instead of their security. So what can be wrong if we just use them without a second thought? Actually, we have seen that there is an established AI model supply chain. And during the model production, distribution, and anyone that is in the middle or any stakeholders in this whole supply chain can maliciously modify these models. For example, inserting neural trojans. And according to our user surveys, none of us care about this security risks. The users lacked a security alertness. Unluckily, we cannot rely on the tools to mitigate such risks because none of the code scanners so far, for example, those ones on GitHub, can detect such neural trojans. They are hidden functionalities. What can we do? We can build the most powerful AI attack ever. So how should we do that? So for the first time ever, we proposed a feature domain Trojan using invisible and polymorphic watermark. It is a structure-based attack. To do this, we select certain areas in the pixel domain to carry out invisible watermarks. After the first convolution, it transforms into features. And to do this, we insert a single neuron after first convolution layer, and it will respond to a predefined pattern. And after activation, it will generate malicious payload, which will propagate through the subsequent layer to dominate the final output. So this is how we generate the trigger. As I mentioned, we select certain areas to carry out watermarks, and we do this through a back and forth process. Firstly, we identify certain features in the feature domain to carry out watermarks. Specifically, we select certain bits after the decimal points, and they combine into our input pattern. And how should we know what exactly are the watermarks? We do this reversely, starting from the pattern back to the pixel domain. We call this a deconvolution, which is basically an underdetermined system of equations, which will hopefully have many solutions, and each solution will be one of our polymorphic watermarks. And this is how we train the inserted neuron. We train it with the victim model frozen, and our training objective is a combination of the target attack function to flip the label, final label, and the second regularization to limit the payload parameters. The reason is that if the long neuron parameters get overwhelmingly large, it may catch the defender's attention. We want them to be like a normal scale. And our training can be white or gray box. And for the white box, we use a few shots of original data. And for the gray box, we use just random noises. And it was noting that our parameters can be significantly pruned. Okay, so here is our attack result. Across 4 datasets and 10 different model architectures, we reach a 0 degradation in the model clean text performance and a 100% attack success rate in both white box and gray box setting. That means whether we use the original training data. Remember that. And for the last 2 lines, they are transformers, and actually we are the first effective backdoor against transformers. What about the other fancy properties we design? As I mentioned, we are the most powerful. So powerful for what? Firstly, for the polymorphism, we can generate 1,000 different watermarks within 2 seconds. Why is this important? Because we have a series of selections for our attack watermarks. Even if the defenders catches some previous attack watermarks, we can use different ones. They cannot rely on the previous knowledge to identify the future attack watermarks. And it is highly specific. That means that the benign inputs will not accidentally trigger the attack. This means that during the normal functioning, the victim users will not find that, oh, there's something wrong. I input a normal image, but there's a pretty different. No, only the attack image will trigger the attack. And also, our watermark strings are completely random, passes all the needs randomness test. So the lack of statistical properties made it difficult to identify these attacks. An interesting part. I mentioned that our attack is invisible, how invisible it is. So to do this, we send out a user study to try to distinguish our attack images and clean images. Our positive rate, which is 4.5, is almost the same as the positive rate of the benign images, which is 4.3. This means that they are actually and literally visually the same. And you can find some reference here. Are they the same? Hopefully, I hope it is. And also, from the perspective of deep learning, we also evaluated all kinds of defenses and mitigations. We evaluated 9 of the current state-of-art backdoor defenses, including the input analysis, examination based on deep neural network behaviors, and runtime detection. Our long neuron passes all 9 of them. And also it shows robustness against like fine-tuning, pruning, and JPEG compression. So what is our conclusion? For the first time ever, we proposed a code or architecture poisoning attacks against AI models, which is embedded in the feature domain. And it is more powerful than ever with a maximum of sensitivity, specificity, polymorphism, stealthiness, and robustness. We show the feasibility and the practicability of introducing powerful attack by compromising a single link on the AI model supply chain. And based on this, we call for further attention to AI model supply chain security. And this work was published in CCS 2022. And beside AI model supply chain, we also look into the physical world by proposing a physical and invisible infrared-based attacks. This is how our work does. And we use a pair of glasses with an infrared projector, and it will project a pattern onto the camera. And this infrared pattern will distract the model's decisions. And this work was published in CCS 2024, to appear, sorry. Okay, so here's all for my research question 1. Any questions so far?
Mm-hmm. I read an article a couple of years ago about actually using patterns on the face to disrupt like AI face recognition.
Yeah.
So you're doing with IR that you're projecting from just glasses?
Yeah, actually I know what you mean. There's a paper that uses light bulbs. Yeah. The infrared red bulbs, they are projecting on the face, but we are projecting on the camera. We are more like a denial of service attack. Does that make sense? A very good question. Okay. Let me move on. The next part is security in generative AI or the AI-generated content. As I mentioned, everybody is using ChatGPT. And beyond that, people are also using like AI-generated images. Have you generated a portrait using AI? That's pretty funny, right? And actually, there can be very much trouble when we are using AI to generate everything. This can range from like plagiarism, when you use AI like ChatGPT to do your homework, to do your essays. And it can also result in like misinformation and disinformation. For example, it is reported that AI has been used to manipulate election results. And they also can be something like spam emails, romance scam, and social robots. You will never know who you are talking with. And to mitigate all such kind of risks or loopholes, the first question coming is that how can we reliably tell whether it is generated by AI, right? Because AI is consistently burning the boundary between AI and human beings. Actually, the most advanced models can generate very human-like outputs. I know you all have experiences. So for the first time ever, we're looking into the ChatGPT content detectability through the lens of academic writing. The reason why we choose academic writing is that it is one of the most concerning and critical domains when we consider AI-generated content. Due to the concerns about the integrity, authorship, misconduct, and plagiarism, there have been many discussions and debates over the AI usage in academia. And conferences and journals have banned AI usage, or a more common practice, they will enforce you to disclose AI usage in the paper. But how should we enforce this AI policy? We should first know that whether there should be something AI, right? However, this is very challenging due to multiple reasons. Firstly, the large language models outputs themselves are very hard to detect. Firstly, their outputs are in a relevant and organized way, just like human beings. Secondly, the sampling is stochastic. That means that when you send multiple attempts with the same questions, they will generate different answers every time. And polishing and rewriting will be extremely hard to detect because they are based on your inputs, and they will be even harder than something they write by themselves. And while the current detection mainly focuses on general purpose dialogues and question and answering, and what we care here is the lack of study in academic writing. Actually, it is even more difficult because firstly, the previous clues, according to previous studies, cannot be utilized in academic writing. For example, human beings tend to be emotional and biased in their dialogues, but ChatGPT is more objective. But this is different in academic writing because everybody is objective, right? And secondly, grammar issues, mistakes, they will never appear in paper writing, either by ChatGPT or by human beings. So you cannot say that, oh, there's a grammar mistake that must be written by human beings. We cannot rely on that to detect. And finally, the academic writing is highly specific to disciplines and domains. For example, medical sciences. And this makes the text output more diverse and complicated. So we urgently need new corpus, datasets, and detectors for academic writing. So for the first time ever, we collect a large-scale dataset for ChatGPT-generated academic writing. We span 3 different purposes. That is 3 disciplines, That is computer science, physics, and human and social sciences, from the most mathematical one to the most literal one. And we also include 3 different tasks that is completely generated by ChatGPT. When you provide it the first half, it completes the second half. And the last one is ask it to rewrite or polish. And we also include 4 different prompt styles. Zero-shot prompting, specifying the tone and discipline, role-playing, and with detailed requirements. That is from the most vanilla and the basic one to the most complicated one. And for each combination of discipline, task, and prompt style, we collect 50,000 of samples. We also collect some additional data for advanced prompt engineering. Finally, we got a size of 2.8 million. And with such kind of big dataset, the first thing we do is to benchmark all the detectors so far, including both the commercial ones and the ones in the literature. For the commercial ones, we select the 3 most popular detection websites. That is GPT-0, ZeroGPT, and OpenAI's GPT detectors. Unfortunately, we find that they are efficient in detecting AI-generated academic writing. And all 3 of them present modest to poor accuracy, and especially task 2 and 3 are especially more difficult than task 1. That is when you provide more information to ChatGPT to ask it completion or polishing. And also, we find that all of them tend to classify GPT generated as human written. We guess that is because these model producers do not want the bad consequences of the false positives. When you misclassify one's genuine writing as ChatGPT generated, that will be that will be very very troublesome. And the next thing we do is benchmarking all the detectors in the literature so far. We select 15 of them, including the pre-trained one, the ones based on statistics, and the ones based on fine-tuned language models. And we found that pre-trained models work poorly because they are designed for the dialogues. So when they transfer to the academic writing, their performance drop. And secondly, we find them all to have satisfying performance on task 1 when ChatGPT write everything from scratch. But when it comes to completion and polishing, their performance drop. And we find fine-tuned language models was were on these tasks, but they come with expensive training overhead. Besides machine-based detectors, we are also interested when human beings, for example, paper reviewers, can distinguish ChatGPT writing. We researched 3 different questions. One is whether they can distinguish them, and whether research experiences can contribute to their performance, and if their capabilities vary by discipline, and will they improve if they are provided with some examples beforehand. And we conduct 2 different groups of experiments. One is blind judgment without any reference, and one is we provide them with some references first, and then we ask them to do judgment. And we collect 242 responses in total. And again, we find that human beings are not that good in distinguishing AI-generated academic writing. And surprisingly, they have increased performance in task 2, that is a GPT completion. And also, they tend to label all as human-written, and the self-claimed research experience do not contribute to their performance. So they have seen that there's an efficiency in both human and machine detectors. So we need to build an accurate detector based on academic writing. And we have several design goals. Firstly, it has to use only moderate data. So for this, we need to collect all the data according to the OpenAI's policy. And secondly, it should be affordable so that it can be deployed by small entities like schools, organizations, and small companies to deploy them. And lastly, it should be privacy preserving and deployed locally. For example, for schools, of course, they are reluctant to share their education records. So to do this, we need them to be deployed locally so that they can transfer to the new domain with just a few shots of the target domain data. The first try of ours is to use the linguistics and the semantics detection. So here we investigate into a feature called the NALA, that is news landscape. It consists of 6 different groups: writing styles, the complexity of the paragraph, the biases, effects, morals, and the events. And we use a gradient boosting decision trees to classify them. And again, we find that they have good performance on task 1, but when it comes to task 2 and 3, their performance decreased accordingly. However, based on these detectors, we review some of the ChatGPT's habitual patterns. The first is they tend to write long sentences and they use long words. And secondly is that they use more gluons as adverbials. That is, they pretty much like the ing form. And lastly, they will use more determiners and fewer personal pronouns. So here's our proposed detection framework. We use rather traditional transfer learning framework with two stages, representation and classification, where representation is pre-trained embedding models. For example, we use Robustness. And for the classification, we use a new lightweighted classification head using, which is attentive by LSTM. Our detector is efficient. The trainable parameters is only 4 million, and it takes only 21 minutes to bypass to surpass Robota, which is trained with 9 hours. And it is affordable. We only use 164 million bytes of GPU memory, which compares to 22 gigabytes by Robota. And our model is applicable because the embedding model can be replaced with any advanced models to improve the performance in the future. And our model is versatile. Since we freeze the embedding models, we retain the knowledge and the generalizability. And our model is also transferable. And thanks to our design, we avoid overfitting and catastrophic forgetting when transferred to a new domain, when we just use a few training samples. Good. And this is the performance of our detectors across all the task disciplines and the 10 prompts. We reached over 99% of accuracy, including the polishing tasks. The training curves further validate that the task 3 is most difficult because it decreases very slowly. And through our ablation study, we explore different choices and combinations, and we find that the Robota and the bi-level LSTM is the best among all the choices. And our model is also transferable across disciplines. However, for the tasks, they are not that transferable. For the models trained on task 1, they are not transferable to task 2 and 3 because they are complicated. But reversely, when the model is trained on task 3, it is transferable to task 1 and 2. Also, by further fine-tuning the last layer using 5% of the data, we can increase the F1 score to over 97% in all the cases. And for all the prompts, it is highly transferable across prompts. And we find that prompt 1 is the most difficult one, where we just use a basic prompt without much information. Prompt 1 is the simplest one. And when we investigate into the transferability to new domains, we look into the honor writing sections, including the introduction, a background, and the conclusion. And we also look into other NLP tasks like Wikipedia, essays, and the news. We also look into other ChatGPT datasets in the literature. And we find that they all transfer well. But of course, with some degradation. The next question we are interested in is whether our detection will remain still effective after some time, because we know that ChatGPT is constantly updating. Maybe after several version updates, our detection will no longer work. So is that true? So we use the data sets that starts collecting the answers for the same set of questions every month, starting in March 2023. And we evaluate our models across all the 10 months. And we find that our performance is good and stable. And especially after June 2023, our model becomes better. We guess that is after after this update, there are more like prominent patterns in the ChatGPT output. We also investigate into their transferability to new large language models. We select GPT-4 and other large language models like Llama, Alpaca, Vicuna, and so on. We find that our detection is directly transferable to GPT-4. Of course, they are in the same family. However, they are not transferable to other large language models, which is expected. But when we fine-tune our detection completely, or we just do train everything from scratch, our model performs well, and it is even better than the state-of-art detectors. For the advanced prompting, as I mentioned, we collect additional data to evaluate our robustness against prompts. So we select 6 different prompt styles, advanced prompt styles. That is zero train of thought, zero shot train of thought, automatic prompt engineering, few shots, generative knowledge, like this. And we also use 4 prompt refinement methods to improve our prompts, to mitigate any biases in the prompts. And our model works well on all the prompts. And as our detection is transferable across all these domains, we are interested in why is that. And so we look into the linguistic features of all these domains and the transferability of our detection. And we do the correlation analysis. We find the most contributing factors. The most positive one are the fairness function, readability, adjectives, pronouns, and groups. So based on this, we guess that our ChatGPT will transfer well to objective, complex, detailed, narrative, or journalistic writing. And for the negative factors, there are the quotes and the particles. And we guess that our detection will transfer not that good on informal writing and conversations. The most interesting problem so far. How many of us are using ChatGPT for writing a paper? So to do this, we evaluate our models on all the archive papers so far from the 2016 to 2023. And we found that after the release of ChatGPT at the end of 2022, the positive ratio grown exponentially to more than 25%. We also evaluate whether the attackers can evade our detection. For example, by asking ChatGPT to rewrite it over and over again to mix what I wrote and what GPT wrote, and to remove those frequent words by ChatGPT, and or ask ChatGPT to avoid these frequent words. And our true positive rate stays high, especially after if we ask ChatGPT to rewrite over and over again, our performance is better. And when we replace just one sentence, our true positive stays high. This means that none of the single sentence is the dominant factor. And also when we replace all the frequent words, we have dropped performance, but we are still okay. That means that the lexical features do contribute to our detection, but they are not the dominant factors. And our true positive rate stays high if you ask ChatGPT to avoid the frequent words it will use. It will not listen to you. And to summarize, We propose the first and largest data sets so far, spanning tasks, disciplines, and prompt styles. Built on this, we benchmark all the detectors as well as human beings and find that they are not sufficient enough. Sorry. So motivated by this, we propose the general detection framework by combining a universal representation module and attentive by LSTM head. It reaches over 99% accuracy in all the cases, which transfer well to new domains and datasets, and it is highly adaptable, efficient, consistent, and robust. And this work is to appear in CCS 2024. Besides text, we also look into images. And again, we collected 140,000 datasets spanning 5 different security critical scenarios like art, disasters, Instagram, news, and PC animes. They are probably the most concerning areas where there is probably misused by AI. And we conduct a large-scale user study with 472 participants, and we do a large benchmarking, including 10 different state-of-art detectors and 5 commercial detection tools. And this work is to appear in SORIX 2024. So what is the key takeaway of my talk? Firstly, the security of modern AI is significant, but it is ever evolving. The modern AI requires continuous and proactive attention to emerging threats. And as AI is developing into services and the supply chains, security challenges are also becoming multifaceted and complicated. The AI-generated content continues to blur the boundary between human beings and AI, and understanding AI-generated content in academic writing contribute to general detection. This is an overview of my research. One part is adversarial AI, and one part is trustworthy AI. We study both the attack AI stealthiness, new attack surface, new attack vectors. For the AI-generated content, we study both text and images, and we also study copyright protection. So for the future, what is next? And actually, we have seen that security risk can happen everywhere, from the model inputs, the models themselves, and the model outputs. Specifically, for the model inputs, we are interested in how the model is produced, how to audit the AI model production, how to ensure that it is reliable and integral, how to ensure the integrity for both the code and the data, and how to verify AI programs after it is produced, how to engineer AI source code, how to design bug oracles for AI testing, and how to effectively verify large models like ChatGPT, and also how to protect AI copyright. A fundamental problem is when it's still my model. For example, if users fine-tune your model, is it still yours? And for the model themselves, how to defend against evolving AI attacks, how to balance security, privacy, and performance, how to fundamentally ensure robustness and privacy, and how to watermark large models. Also, how to apply the robust AI to broad cybersecurity problems, as well as science and education. Lastly, for the users, for the safe AI, it means safety, accountability, fairness, and expandability. We want to ask how to protect the users from generative AI, how to assess and secure large language outputs, how to make sure that they are right, they are aligned with the facts, they are not affected by like hallucination. and how to defend the AI-powered cyber threats. For example, AI-written spam emails, and how to prevent disinformation, toxicity, hate, bias, fairness, so on. For all these questions, we need new practices, standards, and tools. If you are more interested, please feel free to read my other papers. And also, if you are interested, please you can feel free to drop by my office, and we can talk about research opportunities. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Okay, do we have some questions for our presenter?
I have some comment about this. For ordinary users, including myself, use the GTPD, for example. Our concern is how to use the effectively and the security to solve problem. Am I right? I want to solve a problem, so I use the GTPD to help. So our concern is how can we use the GTPD, effectively and securely to solve my problem. So can you give some advices to that, for that problem?
That is a good question. Yeah, I think there should be efforts from both the side. So on the one side, we need to make AI models safe, of course. That's from the side of the producers. For example, nowadays ChatGPT is still vulnerable to like jailbreaking, and it still suffers from factual mistakes. And while we are working to improve it, I believe there is still a long way to go. So one way is we need to make the AI models themselves secure, probably doing the training. Maybe there are other ways to do this. For example, we can add-on mechanisms like in the ChatGPT applications, for example, filters to secure AI models. That is another way. And of course, the other is AI users. It is much more difficult than than the AI models because we cannot expect ordinary users to be security experts. But still, we can increase the transparency of the AI applications. For example, we can make the AI policy for privacy. For example, I'm using your portraits. Please be aware of that. Or I'm using your sensitive data. Please do not input this. If we increase or enforce such kind of transparency, I believe we can better protect end users. This is another way. But of course, we need to enhance the education and to increase the awareness of the end users. That is also very important.
Okay, some more questions?
My question's not really about the thesis so much, but you said that you were asking the same question every month for a few years, and that during one update there was your question got more better, for lack of a better term. Do you have a theory as to why it got better, or you just it got better?
Yeah, actually, we find that after this month, the ChatGPT outputs become even more complicated. It writes long stuff, and it is more hard to read. You can say that. But before this month, it is still very complicated, but it's better. It's more versatile, I would say. But we guess that there might be some updates to the model, or there's a mild watermarking, maybe by OpenAI. We find that, especially after this month, AI tends to write long and hard to read answers, and that probably contributes to our detection because the pattern is more obvious. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional? Yeah.
I recall you had caught a profound difference between what was it, Roberto or where it had 22 gigabytes and yours only took like 164 megabytes. Was that a metric on the intermediate calculations or the actual loading of things? What was that metric there? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that. Thank you for pointing out. That means that for the same batch size, that means that we need the same number of iterations to go over the whole data sets. Actually, here I set 16. For the batch size of 16, we only need like 164 million bytes of GPU memory. Thank you.
Some more? Yep.
What do you think about the ethics of large corporations just sneaking terms into their TOS so they can start using user content to train their own models? Do you think that's ethical?
That's a good question. That is.
It's because it's ongoing. Adobe started doing that with Photoshop.
That's a good question.
They are calling that improved human interfaces or something like that.
Actually,
Is it
why?
slimy? Yes or no?
Why it is a little bit irresponsible to say so, but I believe that in the ChatGPT there's an option. It says that we might use your inputs to better improve our models. But you're right. It is a little bit sneaky. It's hard to find that. But there is a line saying that.
If I'm the only guy in town with a well, and you get what I mean?
What was that?
If
I'm
I'm
sorry.
the only guy in town with a well, do I just sort of get to declare any rule I want for use of the well, even though everyone might need the well?
Yeah, you're right. Yes. That's the dilemma.
Okay. Do we have some more? If not, thank you for your coming and thanks, Dr. Liu, for very interesting presentation.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you so much for listening.